Hello YouTube viewers, Dr. Bob's Garage here again with a quick episode how to do the front hubs on a D44 on my Jeep J20. Take off the wheel, take off the hub, clean out the bearings, install new seals, put it all back together. That's the trick. Let's get to it. The locking hub cover comes off in different ways depending on your setup. This has got the factory hub. And I do have the printed out instructions. Nothing special about it. Remove the old parts, starting with the hub cover. It uses a 9/64 headed Allen bolt. Loosen them all up. I did make sure clean around here so that no dirt is going to get inside the hub when I remove this locking hub cover. There we go. I'm going to keep that all in one piece. It looks like it's been serviced at some point, so I don't have to disassemble that whole part. Take my snap ring pliers, remove this snap ring. Not a super strong retaining ring, but you do got to get it. Once you get a pick underneath it, you just pry it out around its perimeter. Like this. There you go. That was holding all this in here. You might find it easier to grab it with a pair of pliers. There we go. The inner and outer parts of that clutch. We'll put that in a safe place. I'm going to clean it up and re-grease it. Everything's greased. It's a little dirty. That's why I'm doing this. I'm going to have to take these spiders and find them a new home. Unbolt the caliper, hang it, and then remove the nut and pull the whole thing off. Okay, caliper is bolted on with a couple of 3/8 inch hex head bolts. Before I do that, I want to pry it a bit, pushing the piston in to give some clearance. There we go. Adjusted the brakes not long ago, so everything's going to become loose pretty cleanly. Slide this up out of the way and secure it someplace it's not going to fall. I like to rest it on my leaf spring. That's not going anywhere. This whole hub with the rotor is coming right off. The tool you use is a 4-pronged hub nut socket. I like the one with the retaining ring around the perimeter. It keeps that socket set on the axle nut, the spindle nut, without it flopping around. It makes such a difference. The spindle nut has 4 slots on the perimeter that engage those tangs on this socket. So you take off the outer nut, and there is a somewhat sticky retainer ring, lock ring in there. What tool is going to help me get that out of there? There we go. That was just being very difficult. So, here it is, finally. The locking ring. I had to reach behind it with this pick to pull it forward. Because on the nut on the inside, there's a little peg that when you slide this on, this locks into a groove on the spindle, and the pin on that nut pokes through one of these holes, locking that nut in place. You can take the inner nut out. Go. So you can see, let me wipe it clean so you can see it clearly. This inner lock nut has that pin. When you slide this locking ring, that pin fits in one of the holes, and it can't turn because that tang goes into the slot in the spindle. That's the locking nut on the front of a D44. And as always, you're ready to catch that bearing when it comes out. Because the outer bearing is not held in place by any retainer. There we go. That's dirty. I'm going to clean that up, replace that seal, put it all back together. But before I do that, there's a seal in there for the spindle that I want to take out, and also a bearing that I want to replace. Take off the dust shield and caliper bracket, leaving me just with the spindle kind of caked on there. What are the chances this is going to easily separate? Not much. Not much of a chance at all. Doesn't look like it's been apart in a good long time. But there's a seal in there, and I want to clean up everything on the outer part of it. So, get some penetrating oil around the perimeter. There's a little spot from behind where you can tap on it with a drift. I'll give that a shot. As you can see, there's a little depression right there, which allows me to get this drift in behind it. You can see it sits in a bore in that knuckle, and that also gets rusty. And that also keeps it sticking in there. In here there's a bearing that my replacement kit has a replacement for, a seal which seals against the back, keeping grease from getting out and dirt from getting in. A little washer. A washer and a seal. So I'm going to take all this, clean it up, replace the worn parts with new parts, and then put it back all together again. Nice and clean. Certainly clean out the perimeter of this bore so that the spindle will go back in nice and easy next time. So, I'm not going to show you the cleaning process because it's really not all that exciting. So when you come back, it'll all be clean and ready to go back together. Got my rotors off. Now I got to pull out the wheel bearing by removing the retainer seal. Just pry it with a seal puller. And that nasty old bearing. And I clean that up in a second. Comes right out. Next step. Since I took this down to the repair shop, O'Reilly's actually turns rotors. I was happy to hear that. I gave them a turn, found out they were warped and rusted. Well, this one's not too bad, but the other one has a groove right along here. So I got new rotors on order. You can use a press to press these lug studs out, or you're going to have a press. A sledge will do the job. This goes in the scrap pile for recycling. This I'll take inside and clean up. Now that I've cleaned all the grease off the hub, discovered a rather nasty groove discoloration in the race. I don't think you can see it with the lighting. Right there. And the bearing itself is really chattered up on one of the rollers. I want to replace the race. I'll do that by knocking it out from the other side. Might have to resort to the iron punch, which is not going to deform. Go. Now, it's almost at the edge. Now we'll get my brass one, knock her out, because now I might hit that seating surface. That's it. Out she comes. Let me see. I'm going to wipe it off. See if you can see that right there. May not look like much on camera, but it's a good sized smear. So I'm replacing the bearings. Might as well replace that as well. It takes an LM 104 910 race. that doesn't seem to come in a set with the bearing that goes along with it. So you got to buy it separately. Clean out that bore. When I get that bearing race from the store, just drive it in. Here's the offending bearing. I don't know if you can see on that roller right there. I don't know whether that's from corrosion or lack of grease or dirt in the grease. That's what was smearing on that bearing. So I'll replace these two as a set. Be about $30, $35 maybe with tax. Put it all back together.